Get in the fucking water!
I'm getting in the fucking water!
If you don't get in the water, you're gonna fucking die!
We are talking about the movie Rogue. This is not to be confused with the crocodile movie, also called Rogue. No, this is the lion movie called Rogue, directed by MJ Bassett and stars Megan Fox and Philip Winchester. So this one directed by MJ Bassett, who interestingly started their career as a wildlife photographer and is obviously very involved with conservation and things like that, and I think this is part of the kind of inspiration for this movie, because this is kind of like an anti-poaching movie in a lot of ways, with a strong feminist message as well, which is a little bit interesting as MJ Bassett's actually transgender, so it's surprising in a way that it has such a kind of feminist kind of overtone in it. Anyway, so what is the story? So we have Megan Fox here playing a character called Sam, who is the leader of a group of mercenaries. And they are hired to go and extract this this young girl who is being held prisoner by some type of kind of human traffickers and such. In the meantime, in the local nearby kind of poacher lion farm, as they call it, a female lion gets loose and goes on the kind of the rampage. And these forces are going to collide as this daring kind of rescue mission led by Megan Fox's team ends up going into this kind of lion farm, and they come face to face with a deadly lion, not only that, being pursued by the illegal human traffickers as well. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss what works first of all. But before we get into that, I've seen a few trailer reactions to this, and I think, you know, Megan Fox starring in a kind of like an action movie like this was always going to be an easy target. And, you know, I don't even need to see the reactions, just to see the thumbnails of people holding their heads and all of that. And it just thinks, well, you know, I get it, but at the same time, I think we need to judge movies by the movie, not just to kind of your preconceptions about their kind of actor and stuff like that. So I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to kind of go into this because, oh, Megan Fox trying to do action movie. No, I'm going to go into it and look at it objectively. I'm not going to say if it's going to be good or bad until the end, but we'll discuss. But I'm going to look at this objectively and not have preconceived, you know, notions about the actor or anything like that. So anyway, what works first of all? Okay, so there are some pretty well directed action set pieces, I will say. MJ Bassett actually has quite a long career, including a few episodes of Strike Back, which is where, assuming that they know Philip Winchester, who was one of the stars of that show, and obviously brought him over to be in this, because that was a very, very well produced action TV series, and you can see some of that kind of experience coming over into the kind of the set pieces in this one. And despite this not being a huge budget movie, because there are some shortcomings of that, which we'll talk about, I will say the action set pieces, the kind of the stunts, the kind of the choreography is to a very high standard and actually looks pretty impressive in places. I'm not quite sure where this was shot. I think it might have been South Africa, but it takes advantage of the open landscape. We see a couple of shots where we see other kind of wild animals, elephants and things like that. And again, it gives you this kind of like this nice kind of open feel to it. So you feel like you get a sense of scale, you know, where this kind of country is kind of taking part and everything like that. I actually quite enjoyed some of the kind of the characters that this group of you know, mercenaries. I thought there's some quite sort of fun characters in there. One of them hates Boyzone, for example, and another one keeps singing it to him to wind him up. So there's some little kind of neat character moments which I quite enjoyed. And I think they tried, I'm going to criticise it as well, but they at least tried to address the fact about kind of like Megan Fox being kind of somewhat you know, unsuited for the role, shall we say. they are not military, so to speak. They are private mercenaries. So therefore, it's, you know, you're not having all the kind of restrictions that a legitimate kind of government military unit might have. And this would kind of levy some of the critiques I'm going to have in a minute to a point where Megan Fox is in full makeup and things like this. But anyway, I think Megan Fox is not well cast, to be honest with you, despite, you know, I'm saying this. I think she probably does the best she can with what she's got. But nonetheless, this would have been much better for a kind of Michelle Rodriguez type. I didn't really, well, we're obviously going to go on to the kind of the negatives now. I didn't really feel Megan Fox had enough gravitas to really sell that she was the leader of this team of battle-hardened mercenaries. She really didn't have enough kind of command presence within that. And as I've mentioned, you know, we see her with a kind of a loose ponytail, you know, bangs hanging down. She's got a mascara on. She's got I don't know, whatever the eye makeup is, all of that. Eyeshadow, all of this sort of stuff. And it just seems like, you know, I almost thought Megan Fox might have been the producer, but she isn't, because she wants to kind of look glamorous, even though she kind of wants to look, you know, a little bit kind of like hardcore at the same time. I do understand Megan Fox's desire to try and, you know, get out of the shadow of just being a sex object, but I feel that she doesn't she wants to have her cake and eat it too. She kind of wants to have, you know, a gritty action film, but at the same time she doesn't want to fully kind of quite go, you know, full on ugly. The only kind of like wound you'll have is a conveniently placed bit of blood so it doesn't kind of show, you know, cover her face and things like that, whilst all the other cast will be absolutely kind of mauled and everything like that. So it seems that she kind of wants to have this action persona, but not quite go, not fully commit and not kind of, you know, scrub up or scrub down more accurately like the rest of the cast. And as I said, her, you know, her acting is serviceable, but she doesn't really feel like she's going to be a commander. And you really would think some of these other guys seem like they have a little bit more confidence and kind of gravitas that would maybe be the kind of the leader of the group. Like I've said, I think they try and justify it by saying this isn't kind of like the US military, this is a private military contractor, so this is kind of why. So, you know, you can maybe have that kind of argument to a point, but there you go. Next thing is the CGI line, unfortunately, and this is where we're talking, you can see obviously it's a lower budget film, is quite poorly realised, unfortunately. This kind of looks like circa 2000, you know, sci-fi TV movie CGI, unfortunately. They do use some real lines in some shots here, but for the most part, when we kind of see the lion, it's quite poorly rendered, and it doesn't really look quite like a lion as well, I will say. I mean, they have where it gets kind of like injured at the beginning, so it has a kind of an injury on its face. But when you see the actual design of the lion, it's not particularly well rendered. It seems to change size, and it doesn't really quite look quite right, if you ask me. It almost looks like it's some type of deformed lion is the best way I would describe it, but it's not meant to be. So the CGI isn't particularly enthralling. The movie slows down in places, and I think it focuses on some character moments where it doesn't. And I got a feeling, like I said, it tries to have this kind of feminist message. And there's a couple of moments here where we have these rescued women try to have these kind of heartfelt moments and everything like that. And to me, those moments didn't really kind of resonate. I didn't think they were really developed enough characters to try and then to have this these kind of emotional kind of speeches and stuff like that. They more just seemed, you know, faceless kind of hostages, really. And all of a sudden, we're meant to have this kind of like you know, this kind of like heartfelt sort of speech and everything like that. You know, towards the kind of like the third act of the movie, it didn't really kind of work for me. And again, I think our, you know, quote unquote bad guys are a little bit ill-defined, because we do have hints about maybe a large kind of like problem with the conservationists and how there's the, you know, the person who owns like the this kind of lion farm is kind of masquerading as a conservationist, things like that. But those things are only really ever kind of said in passing, and it kind of think, well, that would have been an interesting element to have within the story, but it's more of just a kind of a throwaway line. And I never really quite got what this kind of our main bad guy, what he wanted outside of he wants money, what what led him to there and stuff like that. So he was a little bit ill-defined. But I will say this movie does have some quite fun action set pieces. The story is brisk. It really doesn't kind of stop. It's pretty much straight away. You're in with the action. There's various different locales. I think the movie is very well shot. And it feels like there are moments here where you're feeling like you're watching a kind of a bigger budget movie. But there are elements here, and sadly, although I don't think it's quite as a joke as maybe some people will make it out to be. Megan Fox is miscast. There's no kind of getting her way around it. Or if she kind of really wanted to get in there, she needed to kind of like bulk up a little bit more, get kind of like, take the makeup off, have the proper kind of like practical kind of like hair and stuff like that. And maybe then we would have kind of made people into it. It just seems maybe she was brought on, didn't really want to commit to it too much, be in and out. Oh yeah, that's fine. People won't kind of notice, but people do. But it's not a bad film. I actually did enjoy it for just a kind of a somewhat kind of throwaway action movie. And interestingly, the lion part of it is probably only a minor part to it. Maybe, it's kind of like a lesser degree of threat than the kind of the bad guy, so to speak. So if you could watch it more of a, kind of mercenaries versus human traffickers and criminals, there's much more of that than we have with the actual lion itself. And unfortunately, the lion is probably, as I say, quite poorly realised, so maybe that's for the best. So there you go. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I actually think it's watchable. It's a throwaway kind of action movie that I think you'll enjoy if you don't set your expectations too high. And it kind of sits right on the side of a lot of the kind of like, straight to DVD, straight to VOD action movies. I do think it gets a little bit of unnecessary heat because of Megan Fox, but I don't think that's entirely fair because it's an okay movie around that. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.